The taxi screeched to a stop just short of the gravel driveway I hadn't laid eyes on in over a year. I stepped out, boots still crusted with Afghan dust, uniform sharp and tight, expecting to surprise my mom with an early homecoming and finally crash into my own bed after 11 long months. But where my white cottage with the green shutters and the porch swing had once stood, there was now a dog park. A fenced-in chaos of barking, wagging madness. 2 Labradors barreled across what used to be my living room, chasing a tennis ball. A woman in workout gear shot me a glare as she yanked her spaniel away from my duffel. For a moment, I thought I had the wrong address, until I saw it. The oak tree, the one I'd carved my initials into before deployment. Still there, scarred but standing tall, in what was once my yard. Only now, that yard was gone. A sign read, Cedar Grove Community Park, sponsored by the Homeowners Association. A shiny plaque beneath it gushed about shared joy and neighborhood harmony. My heart hammered louder than enemy fire. I asked a jogger what happened to the house. He shrugged. Some deadbeat didn't pay their taxes, so the HOA repurposed the land. Then he trotted away, unaware that I was that so-called deadbeat. Something inside me cracked. Not anger, not sorrow, but a disbelief so deep it felt like fatigue in my bones. I'd made it through ambushes, led night patrols, pulled children from burning buildings, and now I was being gutted by people in yoga pants and HOA lanyards. I spent hours bouncing from office to office, every clerk more clueless than the last. According to city records, I'd lost the property 6 months ago due to unpaid taxes. Except I had filed a military exemption before I left. One clerk, barely, glancing up, told me to speak with the HOA president, Susan Whitaker. Apparently, she took neighborhood standards very seriously. I found her at the community clubhouse, seated like royalty beneath a halo of self-awarded plaques. A framed photo behind her read Visionary Leader. She was scolding a teenager for setting up a basketball hoop when I walked in. I cleared my throat and introduced myself as the rightful owner of 214 Pine Lane. Her eyes flicked up. She gave me a smirk, the practiced kind people wear when they've already decided who you are. Flipping through a folder, she informed me, cool, and clipped, that the lot had been delinquent, unclaimed, and reassigned to the HOA per policy. I brought up my deployment, the federal protections for active duty service members. She cut me off. Maybe you should have thought about your obligations before running off to play soldier. The room fell silent. Her words hung in the air like smoke. I calmly cited the law that protects military personnel from property loss while deployed. She offered me a plot near the trash compactor. "We can work something out, honey," she cooed, like she was tossing scraps to a stray. I left. Her smirk etched into my mind. That night, I checked into a motel. My body was home. My mind was still at war. This wasn't Afghanistan. It was something worse. A battlefield in my own backyard, against neighbors I had bled to protect. By morning, I called. Javier Morales, a buddy from my unit now working cyber ops for a federal agency. I'd saved his life once. He owed me. Within hours, Javier uncovered a mess of forged deeds, backdated HOA minutes, and shady land transfers involving Susan's brother-in-law. The HOA had created an entire fake paper trail claiming the land had been abandoned. He even found emails where Susan bragged about flipping that grunt's lot and keeping the neighborhood soldier-free. In one, she joked, "If he ever comes back, I'll salute and vanish." The rage I felt wasn't explosive. It was cold, precise. I knew a lawsuit would take years. Susan had lawyers on speed dial. I needed something faster, louder, undeniable. Remembered Colonel Marcus Reed. Before I left the service, he told me, "If you ever need help back home, call me." So I did. When I told him what happened, how the HOA stole my home while I was deployed, his voice went steel cold. send me the coordinates, and a list of HOA assets, quiet or loud. I didn't hesitate. Loud. And the plan was born. I didn't want an apology. I didn't want a settlement. I wanted them to feel what it's like when your world gets ripped out from under you. Javier worked nights assembling a dossier thick enough to choke a senator. He found falsified claims of adverse possession, forged signatures, and sales to a shell company in Susan's family's name. Satellite imagery revealed illegal expansions, sidewalks, fences, even their clubhouse, built over protected wetlands. Susan's emails mocked veterans, called my house a shack. I pinned one of them on the motel wall beside an old photo of my porch, where my mom used to sit in her rocking chair sipping iced tea. I wondered if they had burned it or just bulldozed it like it meant nothing. Either way, they hadn't just stolen land. They'd stolen memory. Then I went to see Judge Clara Hensley, former JAG. She knew my unit, and she hated civilian scams that targeted soldiers. I laid out the whole mess: fake deeds, zoning violations, internal emails. She called it a criminal masterpiece, but warned. The HOA's lawyers and connections could bury it in delays for years. I asked her about federal seizure for abuse tied to public service and military protections. Her eyes lit up. "It's possible," she said. I left her office and called Colonel Reed. He proposed a full-scale military training exercise on the disputed land, under the banner of urban conflict preparedness. By the next day, Operation Homefront had a green light, a weekend-long field op led by the 212th Tactical Battalion. And the battleground, the park that used to be my home. My old lot and the surrounding HOA properties were about to become a military simulation zone, legal, strategic, audacious, and absolutely perfect. Susan had no idea that her next board meeting was about to be interrupted by Humvees and boots. On the ground, Javier and I charted every illegal structure: the clubhouse, the dog park, even Susan's meticulously curated rose garden. Military logistics mapped out vehicle routes, landing zones, and staging areas. 3 days later, everything was in place. That night, my last in the motel, I lay awake staring at photos of the house. My mom laughing as we painted the shutters. Green, the porch swing creaking as she sipped her iced tea. That land wasn't just dirt, it was memory. It was blood and belonging. They'd tried to erase it, but I was about to rewrite the ending. At dawn, Willow Ridge awoke to the roar of diesel engines. Humvees rolled past manicured lawns. Soldiers pitched tents across the dog park. A Black Hawk helicopter thundered above the so-called meditation garden. Residents spilled out in pajamas, clutching coffee mugs and phones. Susan stormed out in a satin robe, her mug reading Cedar Grove's Finest. She froze when engineers converted her precious clubhouse into a temporary command center. She stormed up to an officer, wielding her mug like a royal scepter. He calmly handed her a packet: federal orders authorizing land seizure for investigation and temporary occupation. Her face turned scarlet. She screamed about property rights and sovereignty. No one listened. I arrived in an unmarked SUV and stepped out as she spotted me. "You did this?" she hissed. I nodded. "That land you stole? It's mine again, inch by inch." She blustered about HOA authority. I asked when she last reviewed the actual property lines. She went silent. Soldiers began taping off every structure built without. Permits. The clubhouse, the community pool, even her prized garden, all of it erected illegally or on disputed land. Susan tried locking herself in the clubhouse. County officials simply unlocked the door. Her wine fridge became an MRE cooler. Her living room, a military map room. Chaos bloomed. Residents waved protest signs scrawled on pizza boxes. Some called news stations. A few tried challenging the legality, but backed down when presented with their own zoning violations. An elderly couple approached me with coffee. They whispered that they'd hated Susan's constant fines and power games. They showed me photos of my old house, offering to testify. I thanked them. The tide was turning. By noon, the media had arrived in full force. Susan's hastily arranged press conference fell apart when reporters captured footage of military tape wrapped around her. Choe sign. She railed about government overreach but cracked the moment someone asked, "Why was a veteran's home bulldozed under your watch?" Her meltdown went viral by nightfall. Justice Force Ramirez. Yidi Susan Singh's Igerme. Javier uncovered 5 more fraudulent land grabs tied to the HOA and Susan's brother-in-law, who was now under IRS investigation. A bright red sign went up at the park entrance. Federal Training Grounds. Restricted access. Cedar Grove was now a fortress. Soldiers conducted drills, past stunned residents. Drones scanned the entire neighborhood. Susan's kitchen hosted military briefings. Checkpoints went up, keeping her remaining allies at bay. Inside the command post, I reviewed documents with a Department of Defense officer confirming everything. They'd bulldozed my house illegally, funded by Susan's personal accounts. Outside, Susan grabbed a megaphone and tried rallying her board. They booed her. A federal officer placed an audit notice directly on her HOA meeting table. The HOA was dissolved by order of the court. Applause broke out. Reporters swarmed. Susan mumbled legal jargon, but the story had already been written. She wasn't a leader. She was the villain, and I was no longer just the soldier. I was the reckoning. Javier sent the final blow, a leaked video of Susan mocking deployed troops, laughing about demolishing my house, bragging she'd never face consequences. I forwarded it to the media with a single caption, "I'm home." It spread like wildfire. Outrage erupted. Veterans groups issued statements. Civil rights attorneys offered to represent me pro bono. Susan's remaining defenders abandoned her. Her brother-in-law was subpoenaed. Her contractor rolled over in exchange for immunity. 11 homes, including hers, received relocation notices. Some residents wept, others packed. Her house became a federal review hub, exposing years of embezzlement and shredded complaints hidden in drawers. That evening, I stood on the bare foundation where my living room had once been. Soldiers had cordoned off the area, marking it for reconstruction. I thanked them. Their salutes waited with shared stories of betrayal on the home front. Judge Hensley signed the final order, permanent dissolution of the HOA and full reinstatement of my property. Susan was finished. Her power, her empire, reduced to dust. That night I slept deeply for the first time in months. Justice was near. Closure even closer. Weeks later, rebuilding began. The VA and generous donations helped fund the restoration. My neighbors brought food, offered help, and apologized for years of silence. Susan skipped town with her car stuffed to the roof, her name now mud in the very community she once ruled. Cedar Grove began to heal. Children played freely. Lawns grew wild. A new civic group formed, its charter named the Ramirez Clause, ED, promised to protect deployed service members from harm back home. One morning, I drove the first nail into the porch frame. That's where Mom's swing will hang again. The sound echoed not as destruction, but rebirth. They stole my home while I fought for theirs. So I came back, reclaimed it, and tore down their empire one nail, one truth, one soldier at a time.